afternoon. I'd like to call the finance meeting to order. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on for the topic of discussion today, which is the FAC presentation. Please.
So before we get started, I'm going to give my normal caveat that the projections are not exact numbers, although they appear to be exact. They're kind of the midpoint of what we expect to happen. There's some things happening in the economy that may not be completely built into this, like the cost of living has started to creep up and it's staying up a little higher than it was before, and our projections are built on historical trends. We also have the timing of major projects that have been moved around and will probably continue to be moved around, and we'll adjust the projections accordingly. Also, the 911 funding, if we change the funding formula, that may dramatically change our projections. And in all of our scenarios, the nursing home is staying self-sufficient. So that's my normal public service announcement. So during this presentation, we'll give you the current year status, year-end projections, the 4-year forecasting. The data is presented from the focal point of the general fund and how all the funds flow into the general fund. And the fund balance in this presentation is our budgetary fund balance, which is the general fund unassigned fund balance plus the assigned for future budgetary requirements. A quick overview of the county funds. We have approximately 34 funds with $299 million expense budget. We have 2 budget years, the fiscal budget and the calendar budget. The calendar budget is about $190 million expense budget with 23 funds, and the fiscal funds are about 109 expense budget with 11 funds, and they are predominantly funded from federal and state dollars. Our general fund expense budget is about $88 million with 40 departments. Some of the highlights from the county: there has been no real estate notice change since 2014. We are in the process of preparing for the 7th court that will be in effect January of 2020. Public safety is in the planning process for the P25 radio project, and we did adjust our presentation, delaying the project slightly from what the original presentation was. Public safety is also in the process of implementing a new CAD system. We're in the final stages of Cronus. The last group is in the test box and will be going live shortly. Yay. The nursing home has managed Medicaid on the horizon and multiple other changes, and of course the election equipment. This graph is showing our healthcare cost trends since 2013, and we have been trending upwards slightly, but you can see some decreases in 17 and 18 with approximately a 5% increase for our projections in 2019, or $630,000, and we are currently self-insured, and we keep our eye on the balance pretty intensely like we would.
How is that?
Until last week, we were doing much better. We haven't had time to talk, have we, about the last week's trends? Have you talked to anybody yet?
No, we didn't want that.
But it's only one.
It's one.
Oh, that's the nature of the beast.
Yes.
Compared to the admin fees that we're not paying.
Correct. So we still have funding available. We want to close. And being a young program, we don't have a lot of fund balance yet. And once that's filled up, I'll have a higher funding level. We're seeing better trends this year so far. For retirement, our actuarially determined contribution trend is up $1 million for 2019. However, it decreased about $1 million in 18, so we are still at the 17 levels. And if you look back to 13, it is lower. Now I will give a quick update on where we ended 2018. The total general fund balance is $44.5 million, and that's comprised of non-spendable fund balance, restricted fund balance, assigned fund balance, and unassigned. For purposes of the presentation and for the budget, we use a combination of unassigned fund balance and future budgetary requirement, which is about $33.9 million. That's 147 days of fund balance. Going over the comparison between 2017.
Dave, just on that, our policy, we adjusted that upward years ago. It's now to require 100 days.
It is 100 days, and when we get back to, I'll jump ahead a little bit. We have a fund balance for longer, and it is on page 17. The red part is when we're below the required need.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember, because at one point, we had a lower than 100, and we're well above 100.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then we'll go back to page back. The revenue from 2017 to 18 increased $1 million. The majority of it is related to the real estate tax revenue increase, which is about $860,000 or 1.6%, and other revenue increased $230,000. On the expenditure side of the equation, the increase was about 2% or $1.5 million. Salary and benefits increased $670,000. The actual salaries were 1.1, which were offset by a decrease in benefits of $460,000. Operating expense increased $1.7 million. The majority was related to the nursing home's IGT payment to the state and the prison's medical management services. Subsidies decreased $750,000. The majority was related to the children and youth overmatch that was received in 2018, offset by increases to the criminal justice services and domestic relations. Capital decreased $150,000 and transfers in debt increased $50,000.
I just have a stupid question. I have lots of them. So, you're showing your operating increase, you say most of it is because of our payment to the state relative to the IGT, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be showing that, or shouldn't there be a notation here that says that, but we get back more than we made in payment to the state? So in other words, our operating expense really did increase 7.6%. That's what I'm getting at.
The general fund's operating expense did increase by the 7.6%. The return was to the nursing home.
Okay, all right, I think I understand that, but I mean, in the big picture,
Yes, we did get back more than we received.
those funds are coming back to the operation of the county government, so.
Yes.
but I s- go ahead.
No, mine's a different topic, so.
No, in all reality, the way I look at it is our operating expense really did not increase because that money came back and got more back.
Correct, which is good news,
Yeah.
but because we report based on what's in the GL, we have to tell you that it increased.
Okay.
But the majority of it is related to that, so that's good news.
Yeah.
So that 7% increase really isn't a negative impact.
Right.
Yes, I agree with you. And Gary, you had another
Yeah,
question?
back on page 10, we report the revenue, and you can see what the rate of increase is in real estate tax. Would it make any sense, or can you brief us on what might have been we get the regular reports on what offsets we have from appeals, assessment appeals. So do we know what assessment appeals cost us this past year? And would it make sense to report that at the same time we're looking at the increases as well?
Okay, we can look at that. We do track it.
Yeah.
It hasn't been as much as it was in previous years, but we do track.
You're thinking about like large commercial assessment.
Right. Yeah. What revenue, we see here what revenue we gained, it'd be kind of nice to get a complete picture if we saw what revenue was lost this year as well.
Okay.
So, and we do get that through the periodic reports, but I personally think it'd be useful if it did.
Okay. We'll add that in for the fall and get that information to you. we will update you on the general fund 2019 expectation. And this is comparing August of 18's projections to our current projections. We're expecting to end the year at $30.6 million of fund balance, which is 127 days of budgeted fund balance. And that is a reduction of $3.2 million. The majority of that, as you'll see later, is related to the election equipment. And on our projections for the revenues, all other revenues are decreasing $583,000 or 2%. And it's based on some trends that are decreasing for department fee revenues and commission revenues, but they're being offset by interest revenue, which is a normal fluctuation. We're getting back to normal trends. We do not update the real estate tax numbers until the fall because it's still early in the collection process to have a full understanding if we're going to be over or under budget. On the projected expenses, the benefits are decreasing by about $340,000 due to workers' compensation and medical insurance. The operating is decreasing about $400,000. Subsidy, this is where one of the major changes is $2.3 million decrease, and it's related to the delay in the tower projects for 911 and children and youth we're expecting to receive overmatch, and that's about $963,000. Capital's decreasing $157,000, and we moved the election equipment into the 2019 from the 2020 budget. And of course, if we get grant funding and those types of things could affect that expense also. This is a graphical representation of the fund balance. This is a graphical representation of the fund balance, and it shows the decrease in the fund balance, and the majority of that is related to the election equipment. We had it in before, it was just in 2020 instead of 2019. And this is the fund balance thermometer, and it shows you the different levels of fund balance. We are currently in the middle of, we are expecting the year end to be in the middle of the green section of our thermometer. The red part is where we are not meeting our cash flow needs. The yellow part is in the middle of where our cash flow needs and where our fund balance policy states that we have enough ability to react to emergency situations. And then the green section is where we feel is the best place for that fund balance to be.
Dana, could we just go back to 13 for a second? What's included in the $100,000 for the second quarter?
People, additional personnel that would be starting October, November-ish, that are gonna have to be trained and ready for January 2020. So there's
Is that enough for what they're expecting? Because I mean, you know, the benefits and everything, how many people are we talking about? 2? 3?
They're not gonna start till the end of the year, so the real impact is in 2020.
Oh, I see, this
This is just a little bit,
is for this year, I'm sorry.
yes, just a little bit, people have to get trained to be
I'm sorry,
ready.
okay.
Oh, no, that's okay. We do that to each other all the time.
I have a question on the graph one, 16. And I think you answered this already. The projected 2019, particularly the number of days, we're seeing that significant decrease. Did you say that's predominantly because of the election machines? Okay, so that was heretofore unplanned. So does that number include any of the state subsidy money that we come back?
No,
Okay, so
it's more.
end of year, that our number probably would be better than that, I'm assuming.
Potentially.
Just to- okay.
We have, what was the number, 4.5 million in?
Yes.
So if it's adjusted up or down based on what we actually buy, we're adjusted and funding.
Well, and not only that, but it's like, I think one of the concepts is that we would not necessarily pay for this on a given year. This would be a multi-year payment. And that's assuming we don't get any funding from the state, which hopefully we'll get something. So that $4.5 million drain that you're showing here,
Maybe spread over 5 years.
yeah. may not be as severe.
Correct.
And 127 is still well above our suggested
Yes.
minimum, but that is a heck of a hit for 1 year, which shows you how important.
It is, but when I look at the health of the fund balance, if you remove that, we would still be at a break-even status. When we start talking about we need to really make changes, is when the normal operations are draining fund balance.
Right.
And we have not gotten to that point yet, but that, we are projecting that's gonna happen in 2021, depending on projects. It could adjust up or down.
Dave, the P25 radio project, we were budgeting about 25 million for that.
Yes, originally we had 2 bonds hitting our projections. One was 2 $6 million bonds, and then maybe the last bond would be outside our projection years. We've amended that a little bit because the project's behind the original schedule, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yes, we adjusted the first bond to $10 million because there's really no other projects in the horizon, and normally $10 million is about where we do a bond issue, so we would define it.
Got it.
But that's gonna impact our projections pretty dramatically, not over a 10-year period, but if we keep pushing it out, it will impact the short run. Does that make sense? So this is the graph that we've been showing recently that shows, the red line is the growth in the real estate base, and the green line is the building permits. So based on this trend line, we are expecting the growth to be maintained at the same level or above.
The red line should catch up to the green line. Well, it lags a couple of years, correct?
Sometimes it lags a couple of years. When that red line catches up, it's usually showing a decline in growth.
Right.
And that's when we expect to start seeing our assessment base not increasing as much. Okay. The next slide is showing our tax revenue budget to actual comparisons. And we normally run well below 1% in our percent increases. And sometimes you'll see a dip and then an increase in 1 year, and it's because we're doing our projections really over a 2-year period. And if we're expecting something to hit in say 17 and it hits in 18, you're gonna see that negative number in 17 and then a bigger number in the next year. And that's kind of what happens. Another way that we look and review our assessed value comparisons is we look at the year-end actual assessed value, our budgeted value, and the 3-month assessed value. What comes first in this is the budgeted assessed value. If you go to the bottom page, the green, in 2019, we budgeted $24.7 billion in our assessed base. The year-end actual, which is in the 2018 level, is 24.7, a little bit less than 24.7 billion. We look at those two numbers because a large majority of the time we're already hitting that by year-end, and that's when we know we're going to hit our numbers without a problem. This year, we still have not met the 3-month actual assessed value, so we'll be watching this very close to make sure we're going to meet the numbers. However, one thing that is improving is our first-year collections. So I still think we're going to hit that number because our collection rate is improving, which is good news. And that's what happens when you're in a good economy. Now, our 2019 status in comparison to 2018 actuals. We are projecting that the real estate revenue is going to increase 1.5%, or about $775,000, and other revenue is decreasing about $100,000. On the expenditure side of the equation, we have salaries increasing 1.3 million, or 4.3%. Benefits are increasing $1 million, or about 10%, and the majority of that is related to medical and retirement. And then taking you back to the previous year, we had large decreases, so we're back to the previous year amounts. Operating expenses increasing about 3%, and the majority of that is related to the redevelopment authority grants, which are a pass-through with revenues that are offsetting the expenses. Subsidies are increasing $650,000, and that's due to children and youth and criminal justice services. Capital, $375,000, and transfers and debt are increasing $1.5 million. And there's three major things happening. The 2010 GOB payment, the final payment was made in May of 19. The 2016 GOB was a refinancing of the 2008 bond, and we took that savings this year for $625,000. Or, let me back up. I said that was the 2018 bond that refinanced in 2011, where we had the savings of $575. The 2016 bond, we took the savings through 16 through 18, and that was the increase. Sorry, I got the two bonds confused. All years start going together. This is the merit-based compensation formula update. For this presentation, we do have the fund balance number available, and based on the policy, that percentage is 2.7%. We do not have the CPI number. That will be available about mid-July. And so far for this year, the CPI has been running between 1.5% and 2%. And so we will update that in September, October, when the next presentation is made. And we'll have the number earlier. We can provide it as soon as we have it. This is just graphically showing you the real estate that there has not been a millage change since 2014. And this is showing you the 2019 general fund projected expenses and the breakout. Salary and benefits make up about 52% of the general fund, subsidy 8%, operating 32%, and the remaining 8% is split between capital and debt. On the operating expenses, the 32% of the total general fund, when you split that out to the operating expense, the majority of that is related to payments to agencies and other governments, and that is the IGT payment of $4.5 million, the library tax payment $4.2 million, and the redevelopment authority pass-through grants of $1.7 million. So the majority of those have no real negative impact on the bottom line of pass-throughs. And then on the professional services side, it's $6.4 million. The majority of that is related to the medical contract at the prison, court mandated legal services, prison dietary services, and election officers. And then when we move to the communications, it's $1.3 million, the majority of which is telephone and postage. Office supplies is $1.5 million, and in that office supply budget, it's not just papers and pencils, it's also our computer equipment, our software, our books and periodicals. And this next graph is just simply giving you the dollars behind the graphs. And now I will turn it over to Tammy.
Some of the major changes since last time we did projections is the election equipment. We moved that up to 2019, they were in 2020, and readjusted it from $5 million to $4.5 million. There's been a delay in the 911 projects. We haven't started the towers. We're not doing the bond issue as early, so the projections were adjusted for that. Children and youth, the overmatch, we have estimates in there for 2019 and 2020 what we'll be receiving. We expect to receive an overmatch. And current projections, they do not include estimates for any additional projects. This is always assuming aggressive management of our cost drivers that we've enjoyed here in the last many years. Some of the major pressure points, election equipment, farmland preservation, the 7th courtroom, the renovations, the moves, the personnel that we'll need. The radio project, expecting at least 2 bonds. The 911 CAD replacement, these are all in our projections. So the radio infrastructure, always the state budget loading, CMRC, and any capital pieces that are out there.
So now we heard this morning just to reaffirm that there's 2 towers that works for us, so that you're saying that's what's not in.
They're delayed.
They're delayed.
They're delayed.
Oh.
We pushed them out further in
Yes.
the projections because they haven't started yet.
If they were in our 17 budget, then they were in the 18, then the 19, now they're in the 20. It just keeps,
We just keep shifting them because we haven't started.
Thanks.
which is good, which is okay.
Yeah.
Well, one question though is, even though it's been pushed out, did we sharpen the projections? I mean, it appears that it's two towers. I mean, I don't know what we had budgeted or what are you thinking?
It's happening per tower.
Per towers.
So they're doing another study, they're working with the consultant to make sure they're doing the entire site plan, and kind of what we talked about earlier today, was they're coming up with all the nuts and bolts that they'll need, and then we'll we'll put them in
Well, just.
our silos to determine what's gonna be bid, what's gonna be purchased off of consortiums, to get the best pricing and the best product that we can.
But these, I guess what I'm getting at is these projections are updated as you get new information.
Correct.
In other words, like you move the projection down $500,000 on the election equipment, which, you know, if we're lucky, it won't even be that, you know. Okay, so you constantly monitor that
Correct.
and
We make
adjust.
adjustments.
Okay.
And right now, we have some really big things on the table that are moving, which are going to adjust our projections, but over time, they're not really adjusting them out that much. It's just, we're moving them into different years.
All right.
Okay, so this slide is showing you the projections for 2019 out to 2023. In 19, we're projecting $30.6 million in ending fund balance, which is 127 days. And in there, you can see the election equipment of the $4.5 million. A little bit for the court personnel that would be starting at the end of 2019, and then there's an additional in there for 2020 and out. In 2023, we're projecting to end fund balance at 21 million, and that's 88 days of fund balance. And also, there's a few projects in there too, IMTO in the out years too.
Okay, so how did you arrive at the projection for next year for the 7th court of $533,684? That's pretty precise.
You have to take a guess and we put in the grades of a few of the positions that we were kind of expecting might happen, and then basically taking them, adding a percentage on there because we know salaries and benefits increases, projecting that.
Are we going to be presented with this proposed complement?
Yes. Yes. There, in June, there is an executive session scheduled with courts, and it's not just discussing the 7th judge, it's their entire complement and prioritize changes that they want to see occur.
Okay,
And I
does
don't
that
know the exact
number,
date is, but it's in June.
does that number also include like all the capital costs, or is that separate apart from the 533,684? In other words, the furnishings and all that stuff.
That would just be personnel at that time.
Yeah, the $1,795 chair.
That would be on the capital line.
And that's in 2019.
Okay.
So in the projections, assumptions that we have in the projections, salaries, there's a 4.3% increase in 19, 3.5% increase in 20, and then 21, 23, just a 3.2% increase. It's all based on looking at union contracts, merit-based compensation, overtime trends. Benefits, we have a 5.6% average yearly increase, except for 19, instead of 9.7. Operating, 1.7% average yearly increase, projecting that. Subsidy, 10.5% in 19, it jumps to 35% in 20. And that's when we're gonna start seeing hopefully the towers and 911 projects starting up, subsidy increasing them. An average of 1.3% in 2022 and 23% subsidy. Capital is pretty level except for 19 where we have the 7 courtroom project and the renovations and moves. Children and youth, like you over mentioned there for 18-19 assumptions were gonna be that we're gonna get the money back. And then when it comes to the 911 project, the assumptions we have in there, all pending Board of Commissioner approval. A $10 million bond in 2020, first payment in 2021, a $7 million bond in 22, first payment in 2023. If you look back on our previous projections, we had these bonds earlier, we're kind of shifting them back now with the project. And as the projects develop, we'll be constantly adjusting the projections as we've got new information available. We'll offset project costs with assigned fund balance in the general fund in addition to the bond monies. It also assumes the 911 surcharge will continue to cover all of our eligible expenses. P25, we're still in the development process and there's a high probability of change with that project as we move forward. So there's always, change in project costs. We've got monitoring funding formula changes, the timing of the project, because that all has a material effect on the projections. And this slide here is just a graphical representation of the projections. The red, the maroon bars are the revenues, your blue are your expenses. The green line is our current projections. The yellow line is when we did the projections for you in October. And the black line is the projections from a year ago. So you can see how they change as we get more information. On this slide here, we're showing you the current projections with no changes. That's really the midpoint of the range. Projections really could come out higher, it could come out lower, but we're showing you the midpoint. We're also showing you, what it would look like to break even. And to break even, we would need like 4% change. It could be expenses, revenues, combination, 1% change in 2022 and a 2% change in 2023, just to keep the fund balance at the break even, so you can kind of see what the break even looks like.
Is it going back to one of the previous questions about the big dip in the fund balance in 2019? 2021 is where we start saying, wait, we're having a difference between our normal revenues and expenses, and that's when we need to take a little bit more heightened awareness of what's going on and changing. And that's due to the major projects and shifts. So I just put it on.
On this next slide is just our tree projections, just to give you an idea of the effect that changes have on our projections. The first line is just showing you the current projections. The next section with the changes. Change 1% almost 550,000, 3% change about $1,600,000, 5% change about 2.7%. In the middle grouping, just a little 4% in 2022, just to see what kind of effect it would have. And I did larger one, 10%, just so I could see, what kind of effect it does have on it. We get into the third grouping of 2% in 2021 and a 3% in 2020. You can kind of see the effect that the change has, and the sooner you do the changes, the bigger the impact it has on the out years. The next slide, we did something a little different this time, showing you the current assumptions, but then the second and third line, we're showing you what a 1% change is and a negative 1% change, so that you can see side by side. And a 1% change is just $550,000 of what that does to your fund balance. 2% that would be an ongoing change. And then the last two are 2% plus and minus change, so that you can kind of see the impact. When we talk about ongoing changes, some of the changes can be changes to revenue, can be millage changes, can be departmental fees, collections, interest rates, changes to expenses, farmland, debt service, subsidies, federal funds, grants, salary and benefits or capital pieces, increase in CPI, which is causing higher costs when we're purchasing things. This next graph, the $2 million ongoing change, is showing you, the middle bars are showing you where our current projections are, and that's what, it's the midpoint of the range, that's what we expect would happen. But the dark bars on the left-hand side are the $2 million positive change. The bars to the right are the negative $2 million change. You can see what kind of how quickly the impact of the $2 million change every year has when you get out there to 2023. You also can see that a positive 2% change, the sooner you make a change, the bigger the impact it has on the out years for you.
$2 million change compounded, like it's $2 million each year. It's not 2, 4, 6, 8.
It's $2 million ongoing change.
So that's just a $2 million change in 19 and how it ripples out to
Now, it keeps going.
Right,
Yeah.
but it ripples.
Yes.
So it's a $2 million ongoing change.
It's the cumulative impact of a one-time reduction. Is that what you're saying?
No, ongoing.
So it'd be $2 million in 19, $2 million in 20.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cumulative.
Yeah.
Something happens, you make it $2
Well, it's
million.
recurring.
Mm.
It's recurring.
Recurring, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And cumulative.
Yeah.
And this slide's just a graphical one, we kind of like showing, you're adding that bag of money in 19, when you get out to 2023, you've got extra bags of money out. You give more money out. You empty one, you empty
Accounting for
one.
politicians.
Yes, yes. This is what happens. I like the way you put that here. And our last slide is the comparative tax rate, Cumberland County. These are the 17 numbers. We'll have the 18 numbers by the time we do the next presentation because the cappers are not available yet for the counties. They're available July, August timeframe. So we'll be updating it with like 18 numbers in. For 17, we're still the lowest, the property tax per capita, the average tax per household, per median household income, and the lowest with the average tax per household. Any questions?
No, I just have a comment. This is a heck of a lot better than the first one as I saw it in 2012. I saw a bunch of red.
Yeah, you did. But that's a perfect example of how making big changes early, set the projection for where you're going. So, because not only was the millage
We were in
changed.
trouble in 2012.
Right.
Because,
And that's where I'm keeping some of my caution, because we had perfect storms happening in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, where the economy turned around, and our interest revenue went down, our recorder of deeds revenue went down at the same time. We weren't having the growth in our real estate base, but our retirement was increasing because the economy was down. Like, we had the perfect storm, but we turned it around, and the economy also helped, but now we have to keep our eye on the economy to make sure some of those negative shifts don't start happening.
It's a constant that I know, this is my fourth budget now. When I first got here, there was a lot of red.
Well, it's never a matter of if the economy's gonna go bad, it's when the economy's gonna
When.
Yeah.
And I'm putting a lot on the economy. There's a lot of other factors. It's healthcare, it's the retirement arc, it's what happens at the prison. 911 funding is huge. That is one of the major things that changed, that helped change our projections. Because
That's
we were
an
subsidizing.
extra $2 million a year, right?
Mhm.
An extra $2 million a year as a result of that 911, $1.65 per device cell phone charge.
But if they change the funding formula, the reverse could happen. And that's what we have to watch for, the reverse.
I know we should be good for 2020. You know, and then hopefully we'll still be good, but right now we just gotta keep our fingers crossed that the House or the Senate acts on the other chamber's bill to reauthorize the fee.
Yes.
Because we could see a big hole real fast, you
Yes.
know, if they don't reenact it by June 30th. So they got, in addition to the budget, they got some other important things like that to get done, you know, so we'll see.
There's a million ways this could change real fast.
Very fast.
15 months ago, we were literally days away from opening up another wing in prison.
Yes.
We didn't. It's a good thing we didn't, because that would have cost us big time.
Yes.
It's a good decision.
And I believe the courts are trying to expand treatment court. And that has the potential to benefit us pretty big on the prison side of the equation. But it will draw down court costs and fines temporarily, which is okay, because they forgive some of the fines if they are successful. Yes. The first year treatment court opened up, it actually negatively impacted our court costs and fines, $200,000, but then it recovered. But that was a good thing because they weren't in jail. We saved a lot of money on jail time.
This is right, though, that, you know, the caution on the part of this board that we didn't open up another wing in prison. Because, and unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with getting the opioid situation under control within the treatment steps that we've taken as opposed to incarceration, so. But yeah, we were real close. But that was a step, that was a smart move on our part, I have to say.
Absolutely.
There's something to look back on that. Because that would have been, an extra, I don't know, $500,000 or $1 million expense.
$500,000 on just the prison, but when you look at what opioid courts are actually doing, it's helping keeping people kids out of placement. Some of the defendants are getting jobs. It's having a positive impact in areas that are hard to measure, which is good.
Okay.
Well done. This is
Yeah.
really good.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other
Oh,
questions?
by the way, and I know we use all this comparison, all this kind of stuff, but I happen to be looking and I showed the kids to Gary. The County Commissioners Association magazine.
Yes.
I was going to bring it up. Thanks.
And I just happened to look over the tax rates, the real estate tax rates. We have the lowest real estate tax rate of any county in the state of Pennsylvania.
Is it the lowest now?
Yes. So now I realize there's different ways that gets, depends on whether you're at 100% assessment or you have to reassess or you're at 25. But I mean, I still think it's something we should be proud of. In addition to the fact we have the lowest, I like to say, lowest real estate taxes in any county in the region, which I think, can be
I think
justified.
that's a true statement. And that's why we do page 43. It measures the tax revenue in multiple ways, and we stay the lowest of the benchmark third county. And when the controller's office does the CAFR, they benchmark up and down, and then we do kind of look at that too and make sure that we still remain the lowest, and we do. It's just our presentation is more than third class, so. So both ways that we do it, remain the lowest.
What's remarkable about that is backdrop is where we are among the very fastest growing.
Yes.
Maintain a very sensible policy.
Yes, and millage rate is relatively static in comparison to the growth of the other operating expenses.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
so-
not like a income tax that grows with income. It's,
Right. And it's always a balance, because, as the county grows, we're going to, have an increase in demand for services and needs that have to be met. And we need to be able to address those needs, And then on the other thing I always like to look at your projections here about, okay, if we increase taxes by 2%, this is how much more money we would have later on. But my problem with all that is, okay, some of those seniors like me, all right, who are paying that higher tax now won't be around for the services that might be offered, 5, 10, 15 years from now. So the question is, and I go back, I always use the analogy of that they used to factor in with respect to utility plants and power plants when they're built. When they don't put it in the rate base until it becomes used and useful. Right, so that's something else that, because our requirement really is that we have, and I appreciate the projections and you want to plan ahead, but our requirement is to have a balanced budget on an annual basis. And I always thought that, you shouldn't spend more than you need to, you shouldn't tax more than you need to. So,
and in my opinion, page 43 proves that.
well, you guys have done a good job, great job. So.
Any questions? Anybody, comments?
I just want to say that I want to thank Dana and her team for doing such an excellent job. We met with them on several different occasions, and they presented this to us, and they kept refining it, and they did an excellent job, and I think it's great that they keep an eye on the pressure points for the county, and that they keep us apprised of everything so that we know what's coming, we know what's going to hit us. So, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you. It's all done.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Do we have any other business to discuss? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So,
Adjourn, thank you all.